Have you ever heard the saying, hospitals never truly sleep? Even when the lights go out and the hallways fall silent, there's something else that lingers in the dark, something that watches, something that remembers. What if I told you that deep inside one of the most notorious abandoned hospitals in the country, people still hear screams echoing through the empty corridors? That former staff members, ghost hunters, and even random explorers have all reported the same terrifying encounters, and some of them swore they would never return. Tonight, we're going to dive into three chilling true stories connected to an abandoned psychiatric hospital. These aren't just urban legends. They come from witnesses who claim to have experienced them firsthand. From mysterious cries that shake entire wards to a patient who shouldn't exist, and a sealed basement hiding secrets no one was supposed to uncover, be why the end of this video. You might start questioning whether hospitals ever really close their doors, or if some patients never check out at all. Asterisk Story 1. The Screaming Ward. They say every abandoned hospital has a darkest place. Not the morgue, not the operating theater, not even the basement, but a place where the air itself feels wrong. For this hospital, that place was the third floor West Wing, better known among staff as the Screaming Ward. The hospital was built in the 1930s, when psychiatric treatment was closer to punishment than healing. Lobotomies, electroshock therapy, ice baths, you name it. Patients who couldn't be controlled were locked away, hidden from visitors, left in bare cells to scream and claw at the walls. Nurses hated working that wing. They used to tell each other, if you hear the screaming, keep walking. Don't look inside. Don't answer. Even in the final years of the hospital, long after the worst practices were supposedly abandoned, the ward never quieted down. Reports from night staff describe hearing wails in the halls when all the patients were sedated. Some claimed they could hear voices underneath the screams, whispers in languages no one could identify. By the time the hospital was shut down in the late 1980s, that wing was already sealed off. But once the doors were left unguarded, urban explorers, thrill seekers, and paranormal investigators started sneaking inside. And that's when the stories got worse. One of the best-known accounts comes from a group of 4 friends in 2006. Their names are still floating online: Mark, his girlfriend Jenna, their friend Kyle, and Kyle's younger brother Eric. They had heard about this screaming legend and decided to spend the night inside the ward with cameras. We wanted to prove it was just the wind, Mark later said in an interview. The first 2 floors were unsettling but manageable. Old wheelchairs overturned in the hallways, medical charts scattered like confetti, graffiti covering walls where patient records once hung. But as soon as they climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, everything changed. It felt like walking into a freezer, Jenna wrote in her diary later. The air was so heavy and cold I could see my breath, even though it was August. The hallway stretched long and narrow, lined with rusted doors. Their flashlight beams caught scraps of leather restraints still dangling from bed frames. Eric laughed nervously, trying to lighten the mood. Looks like a horror movie set. If we hear anything, it's probably just rats. They made their way deeper into the ward, filming everything. At first, nothing happened. Just the crunch of broken tiles under their boots, the squeak of a door hinge, the occasional flutter of a pigeon startled from a window. And then, it began. At first, it was faint, like someone crying at the end of the hallway. A woman's voice, shaky and desperate. "Did you hear that?" Kyle whispered. They stopped, listened. The sound didn't fade. Instead, it rose, stretching into a scream so loud it rattled the ceiling tiles. "Jesus Christ," Eric muttered, backing up. "That's not an animal. That's a person." Mark, trying to sound brave, said, "There's no one here. It's just the echo." But before he could finish, the scream cut off abruptly. The silence that followed was worse. Then, from the room to their left, came the sound of scratching. Slow, deliberate, as if nails were dragging across the inside of the wall. Jenna's flashlight trembled in her hand as she pointed it toward the door. "Don't," she begged. "Don't open it." But Mark, stubborn, reached for the handle. It creaked as he pushed the door open. The room was empty, a stripped mattress on the floor, rust-colored stains along the wall, broken straps still bolted to the bed frame. And then they all heard it, a whisper, low and desperate, coming from inside the room. "Don't leave me." The four ran. They didn't stop until they were out of the hospital, gasping in the humid summer air. Later, when they reviewed their footage, the audio captured more than they remembered. Over their panicked voices, you could clearly hear another, a man's voice, deeper this time. It repeated the same phrase over and over: "Don't leave me. Don't leave me." But here's the detail that chilled them most. In the video, the whisper didn't come from the room. It came from right behind the camera. Mark swore never to go back. Jenna stopped speaking about it entirely. Kyle posted the footage online, but the video mysteriously disappeared within weeks, taken down for violating community guidelines. He claimed he never removed it. Eric, the youngest of the group, became obsessed. He returned twice, each time alone, convinced he could capture clearer proof. After his third trip, he stopped posting online. Some say he moved away. Others whisper he never came back out of the hospital. To this day, explorers who visit the third floor say they hear the screams begin faint, then rise to a horrifying crescendo. Some hear banging on the doors, like patients still trying to get out. Others swear they've seen faces pressed against the tiny glass windows, faces pale, twisted, and screaming silently. Point one thing everyone agrees on: if you stay too long, the whispers start. They don't sound like recordings or echoes. They sound like voices pressed right against your ear. And every voice says the same thing: "Don't leave me." Story 2. The Vanishing Patient hospitals are full of records, charts, files, patient numbers. Everything is supposed to be documented. That's why this story unsettles so many people, because it's about someone who doesn't exist. Former staff members who worked night shifts in the late 1970s tell the same story. They called him Room 6. A man in his 40s, thin, pale, with deep-set eyes and a constant, unsettling grin. No one could remember admitting him. No paperwork, no medical history, no family visits. But everyone swore they had seen him wandering the halls at night. Nurses would catch him sitting in the common room, staring at the static on the television long after lights out. Orderlies would find him standing silently in doorways, watching them pass. When they'd confront him, "Sir, you need to get back to your room," he would nod, shuffle down the corridor, and vanish around a corner. Moments later, he'd be gone. Point one nurse recalled a night when she followed him. She had just finished handing out medication when she saw him at the far end of the hallway. His hospital gown dragged along the floor, bare feet smearing dust as he walked. She called out to him. No response. She picked up her pace, determined to escort him back to his ward. He turned the corner. She hurried after him, but when she rounded the bend, the hall was empty. She checked every room, every closet, every door. Nothing. She wrote the incident in her nightly report, but the next day the supervisor frowned. There is no patient in room 6, he said flatly. That room has been empty for years. The nurse thought it was a cruel joke, but when she checked the charts herself, she realized he was right. Room 6 hadn't been assigned in over a decade. Stories of the vanishing patient continued even after the hospital closed. In 1999, two teenagers snuck inside with a Ouija board, hoping to summon spirits. They didn't need the board. Just as they were setting it up, they heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy dragging. When they looked up, a man in a hospital gown was standing at the far end, smiling at them. His eyes seemed to glow in the beam of their flashlight. Holy crap, someone's here, one of the teens shouted. They scrambled, stuffing the board back into their bag. The man didn't move. He just stood there, tilting his head. Are you okay? The other teen asked, her voice trembling. The figure slowly raised a hand, like he was about to wave. And then, in the blink of an eye, he was gone. No sound of retreating footsteps. Just gone. The two ran all the way out of the building. They swore for years afterward that they had seen his face, pale, grinning, eyes too dark, like holes. Even paranormal investigators have reported strange encounters. One team set up cameras in every hallway of the hospital. For the first 2 hours, nothing happened. Then, at 3:14 a.m., a figure appeared in the frame. A man, thin and sickly, walking barefoot down the hall. His gown fluttered as though there were a breeze. But here's the disturbing part. While he was clearly visible on the east hallway camera, none of the cameras he should have passed through before ever captured him entering. He simply appeared out of nowhere. The team rushed to the hallway within minutes, their equipment ready. But when they got there, the hall was empty. The only evidence was the video, and even that seemed corrupted, flickering with static every time the figure passed by a door. Locals now say if you visit the hospital at night, you might run into him. Some see him standing at windows on the upper floors, staring out into the parking lot. Others claim he walks behind them in the corridors, always keeping just enough distance to make you second-guess yourself. And then there's the warning that's been passed around for years. If the vanishing patient ever waves at you, don't wave back. Because those who did were never seen again. Story 3. The sealed basement. Every hospital has a basement. Most are harmless. Boiler rooms, storage, laundry facilities. But in this hospital, the basement was different. Even when it was still operational, staff whispered about it. Few wanted to work down there, and those who did never stayed long. When the hospital was abandoned, the entrances to the basement were sealed with heavy steel plates. The official reason? Structural instability, risk of collapse. But rumors say otherwise. Some believe the hospital hid something so disturbing that even after closing, they wanted no one to see it again. In 2013, a group of explorers decided to find out for themselves. They had heard the legends, that the basement was once used for secret experiments, that patients were disappeared there, that something unnatural still lingered in the dark. So they came prepared with bolt cutters, crowbars, and cameras that IT took them hours, but eventually they pried open one of the rusted basement doors. The air that rushed out was foul, thick with the stench of mold and something metallic, like old blood. Their flashlights illuminated a stairwell descending into pitch black. The deeper they went, the quieter everything became. No sounds of insects, no echoes from the floors above, just silence. When they reached the bottom, their lights revealed rows of rooms, each with steel doors, some with tiny barred windows. One explorer muttered, "These look more like prison cells than hospital wards." Inside the first few rooms, they found nothing but rusted bed frames and crumbling walls. But further in, they discovered something chilling. On one wall, scratched deep into the paint, were words, "We are still here." They laughed nervously, assuming it was graffiti from other trespassers. But when they checked closer, they realized the scratches were old, decades old, too deep, too weathered, to have been made recently to eye in another room. They found restraints still bolted to the walls, chains ending in broken leather cuffs. Beneath the bed, something small and brittle, human teeth, scattered like someone had tried to hide them. The group pressed on, though one member, a girl named Sarah, begged them to turn back. "This place doesn't want us here," she whispered. Then they heard it. A low, rhythmic banging echoing from the far end of the corridor, like someone striking metal with their fists. They froze, staring down the hallway. "Hello." One of them called out, voice shaking. The banging stopped. Silence. They took cautious steps forward. Halfway down the corridor, their flashlights flickered. In that brief second of darkness, Sarah screamed. When the beams returned, she was gone. The three remaining explorers frantically searched every room, every corner, shouting her name. No trace, no footprints leading away. She had vanished without a sound. Panicked, they bolted for the stairs. As they climbed, one looked back and swore he saw Sarah at the bottom of the stairwell, standing perfectly still, her face pale and her eyes completely black. But when he blinked, she was gone. The survivors never returned. They posted fragments of their footage online, but much of it was corrupted, filled with static. The only clear frame that remained showed Sarah smiling faintly in the corner of a cell they had never entered. Local legend now says the basement collects souls. Those who go down there and never return are not truly gone. They become part of it, trapped forever. That's why the entrances were sealed, not for safety, but to keep whatever is down there from spreading. Even now, some claim that on quiet nights, if you stand near the old hospital, you can hear faint banging beneath the ground, as if something or someone is still trying to get out. Asterisk, you've just heard three of the most chilling true stories from one of the most haunted hospitals in the world. The screams, the vanishing patient, the sealed basement. All of them are reminders that some places never truly let go of the people who walk through their doors. If you felt your heart racing, your skin crawling, or heard a whisper in the back of your mind while watching this video, you're not alone. And there's more out there, waiting to be discovered. So before you leave, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next terrifying story. And if you have your own experiences with haunted places, strange disappearances, or things that shouldn't exist, share them in the comments below. Your story might be featured in a future video. Remember, Some doors, once opened, can never be closed.